Hello, I'm Joel Deering with the International Volleyball Hall of Fame. We are speaking one-on-one today with members of the induction class of 2017. This is Volleyball in Perspective. I'm joined by ANDERS Kristiansson of Sweden. ANDERS, welcome and congratulations.
Thank you very much for having me.
You are being inducted as a coach for what was truly an impressive international coaching career. Between 1972 and 1988, you led your women's and men's Swedish club teams to 26 national championships. Perhaps your most significant impact in Sweden was in leading the Swedish men's national team to a 7th place finish in the 1988 Seoul Olympics and to silver at the 1989 European Championships, including a semifinal win over the powerful Soviet Union team which had won the previous 11 championships. You were honored during this time frame as the best sport coach in Sweden, and you received the King of Sweden's Medal of 8th Size in 1989. You later coached in Italy's Serie A1 league, then led your Belgium club to 15 national championship and cup titles, and followed that up in Greece, leading your teams to 3 national championship titles. You circled back to Sweden between 2010 and 2013 to coach your national beach volleyball team and help them qualify for both European and World Championships. Your most recent impact has been as one of the first foreign coaches in Japan's 5 Premier Leagues, where you led Toyota to a national championship and national and Emperor's Cup titles. Quite a resume.
Yeah.
How young were you when you first, let's start at the beginning. How young were you when you first got interested in sports, and when and how did you become in volleyball?
I grew up at the countryside in Sweden and moved to nearby Stockholm at the age of 10. And before a ball at the countryside, I haven't seen. So I got interested in in Stockholm. Everything was about sports in my new class, new classmates, and so on. So I played ice hockey, soccer, and those things. But in winter, those time was a long time ago. You were supposed to do sports outside. There was not inside halls and stuff. But finally they came up with a sort of tent that they were putting warm air into and like a balloon. And that was made for track and field practice. But a group of Estonian people that came after the Second World War to Sweden got an hour or 2 for practice on that kind of rubber thing on the floor where the track and field athletes used to have. So it's a way to get out of the cold and into the warm. So we could jump into the mat of the high jumpers or pole vaulters and so on, if we just played a little bit volleyball as an excuse. So
that's where it started.
That's why it started, and I got hooked by this sport after a few times. So I stopped jumping into this mats for landing in pole vaulting and stuff, and tried to learn volleyball from these old guys. They were pretty old. At least in my mind, they were pretty old then. So that's when I started, and I think I was about maybe 15 or something like that.
So at that point in your life, because as we think about how much coaching you did and the success you had, what were you thinking about in terms of a career? Were you thinking ahead to a career in sports, or did you see yourself doing something else later in life at that point?
Yeah, I don't think I thought of myself making a career. Volleyball was really new. I haven't heard about it before I jumped into that tent. And but since it was so small sport in Sweden, we had success, very immense success early, winning the Swedish Juniors Championship and stuff with my group. And it just went on from there. And when I started to think about a career or doing something, I don't know. I think gradually you come into this thinking.
So give us the age frame going kind of from playing into coaching. How far did you go with playing, and then when did you transition into coaching?
Yeah, that was also gradually, because I started to practice and practice really hard, and eventually I got to the national team at a fairly young age. I think around just over the 20s. Played in the national team and in my club team. Somebody arranged that the coach got fired. We had a coach from Czechoslovakia. And without thinking who was the successor, and they pointed at me, and I was really young, I think maybe 25 or something. So I kept on playing and being playing coach for some years, but already I started my women team where I grew up, where I started to play. So I started that team, and I've been probably coaching that one already 5 years or so. So maybe I started coaching at 20 plus something, and then seriously coaching from about 25 years of age.
So in those early years, I think you had quite a bit of success coaching more than one team at the same time. Tell us how that worked.
Yeah, it works if you have a fast car and you don't put too much attention to the speed limits. No, that was pretty unique. I worked for 2 rival clubs, 2 of the biggest clubs in Sweden, where they had both men and women juniors and big academy and so. And in one of these clubs, I started the women's section and the girls section, and I made this club grow up to 2,000 players. But at the same time, there was a better club for men's team that was more elite thinking orientated. So, and they persuaded me to come to play for them. And that was a team I was a player coach, and at the same time I had my women team. So I arranged that they have different training times, and if I speeded really, I could make the trip with the car in 30 to 40 minutes. Should take an hour, but I could do it pretty fast.
Wow.
And we practiced every night, and then I arranged that the women's always played Saturdays and the men's always played Sundays. So it was possible finally to make that, and that's why I could collect so many titles. So in these 14 years, I collected 26 titles because of that.
That's amazing. Were you impacted early in your coaching by what was going on in other countries? Even let's say in the early 70s. You know, what other countries maybe in styles of play impacted your thinking?
Really short. From the beginning, the influence come from. I didn't have anything else that the immigrants from Estonia that came, but they, like I told you, were old men. I realized early there is much more to this sport than this. And then you start to look at Finland, that had a culture of volleyball much before Sweden had. And it went pretty rapidly. You go over the Baltic Sea to play to Finland and see other, and then you realize other teams are much better. And the television came on, and you saw the Olympics, and the big impact on me was the Olympics '72, when Japan was winning, and I saw this is a total other volleyball than the other ones in Europe are playing. I had already been seeing some in Italy, I think the European Championship, '71, things like that. But then I got really hooked, and we got Japan coming to Sweden. I was a part of organizing this also, and I got kind of scholarship to go. So I spent a whole summer in Japan, 1976, just to learn more volleyball. I was so eager to get all the information, and how could they play like this?
So fast, right?
Yeah. You remember when I started to play, we played with a brown ball, and of course, there was no antennas and all these things, and nobody was the one at the middle of the net was setting the ball. If somebody set behind, it was a sensation.
Yes,
Somebody who made a back set almost didn't exist. So, and you know, the underhand skill didn't exist when I started to play, but it came pretty early.
What were the keys to success in leading Sweden's national men's team to prominence in the late 1980s?
Yeah, you know, I got really hooked up. My whole life was into volleyball. I went to Japan to study, and I made for myself, like, I'm gonna teach tall Swedish guys. I'm gonna select tall Swedish guy and make them playing like Japanese women. Wow. The Asian, Japanese. Wow. This is how I was. That was my concept of what was going on. So I studied a lot of women techniques and how they could play so good. And I said, if I can do this with men, with taller guys, that would be something special. And I was not so impressed by the Russians or the DDR or Bulgarians, all these East European countries that was dominating in Europe. We could not even have a European championship with the teams that are strong now, like in Italy or or Belgium or Holland or all these, because we had to make a separate championship for West European countries. So I think that was the start of it, that I wanted to change that. I saw there is future, there is other way to do things, and like this I have always been in the forefront of changing the game.
Coaching against so many outstanding coaches over the years, could you name one or two of those colleagues who most impressed you?
I was impressed, of course, in the beginning of the Japanese, from Matsudaira, Mr. Yamada, who was coaching the women's. And after I got to know people, to exchange experience or questions, or I was asking, and early with Doug Beal. Later when we, our team, when I started, was the worst team in all the world. We even didn't have a ranking. We was outside of the ranking.
Wow.
I don't know, number 150 or something. And after this some years, we were in the top 5 at least, I think. And the first time we had a chance to play USA with Marv Dunphy, it was just running up to the Olympic Games, '88. We
right.
come quite a while. It was a big tournament in Italy because of the political boycott, and so Soviet Union and USA didn't meet. So finally they should meet in something called Mondo Volley, and it was a single knockout tournament. And we just made the qualification the week before in Italy. There was only one ticket. We beat Italy 3-0 at home. So we had to wait 3 days, and then this new Mondo Volley started. It was like a promotion, but it was really a high-class event, and it was made on a stage, like Russia or Soviet Union and USA should meet in the final. So in 8 teams, so in the quarterfinal, we had to play USA. And of course, I was taking all information about international volleyball, and I was reading and looking, and these small films or video at that time, what you could achieve. So I knew a lot about USA team. They knew nothing about my team, I think. So the first day, quarterfinal against USA, we win. A team of Karch and Timmons and all these Stork, whatever, all these famous guys.
All the Hall of Famers.
Yeah, all the famous. And we won, so US just had to go back. And there was no match between US and Soviet Union. And we felt really great about this.
Tremendous.
Upset the Italians is always nice. And and then I met Marv, and he invited us to come over here to US to play for a couple of weeks, and I stayed by his house, and I become a good friend with him, and it's rolling on like that. So a big impact from Dog, from Marv, from Velasco. I had a lot of fights with Julio Velasco when I was coaching in Italy or I was in Sweden. Also, many people, I think, contribute to a lot of things. I had a good relation with Mr. Platonov from Soviet Union also. Many making small parts of the mosaic.
Well, you've coached in Italy, Belgium, Greece, Japan. Share a few challenges that you had in your transition to those cultures and coaching different athletes.
Yeah, I think you have to understand the culture. What are the values in what society you come to coach in, and what are the values? Except for the facts, volleyball facts are always volleyball facts, and of course, the knowledge I have always thought it's the base. Without knowledge, it doesn't matter. You cannot put a show on just to make something happen. You have to have the knowledge, then you have to understand the people, and if you can combine these two, and if you can also make the communication all right. That was a little bit problem in Italy, because at that time nobody spoke English. I come to Italy, and I came to Italy after making this journey with the Swedish team from nothing to taking part in the Olympic, beating Italy and so on, and having already good success in European championships. So they thought, here comes a great coach, and I coming there, I cannot communicate with them. So that's not easy. So they say after 2 months, please speak Italian. Okay, I try to do my best, but not easy.
Yeah. What was the top factor in you returning to Sweden to coach your national beach team?
But I've been since 1988. I had been abroad coaching in Italy, in Belgium, in Greece a lot. many years. How many is that? I don't know, 25, 30 in a suitcase from one team to another. Although I didn't change so many teams, but at least you stay away. It's not your home really.
Right.
And it started to aching a bit. So I think I had it. I don't want to hear another president saying that we really want the championship this year. I thought I had many titles. I had done it. I know what it was all about. And I said, let's settle down a bit, come back to Sweden. And then I had some relation with some players that been indoor before, or the federation, and some people. And they asked me if I could help out for the national team that was on the world tour and trying to qualify for Europeans and Worlds, Olympics. And I said, okay, let's give it a shot. And I involved in this for 3 years until the Japanese started calling.
And then you made one more trip.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you about your coaching, teaching, and leadership philosophy and style. I listened to an interview that you gave, and you talked in this interview about the importance of not just spending your time trying to just improve the weaknesses of your team, that it's very important that you determine the strengths of your team and strengthen the strengths. But how would you describe your coaching style?
Oh, very complex question. I think I'm very well prepared. I think you have to have a good judgment, a good understanding of each individual. You must know where you're heading, what is it that you're really into, that you want to coach? What are you want to teach at this specific training? What do you want to teach the individual, and what do you want to teach the team? And of course you have to combine this together, but I think it's much about teaching and understanding and get the communication done in a way that the player really understand why he or she is doing this and not doing it because I say it.
Right.
And that has been my big challenge in Japan, where people are used to take orders and just say yes, yes, not questioning anything. But I have been struggling all my volleyball career almost to have the answer for myself. If I have the answer for myself,
great.
I can answer each and every individual, I think. And then you have to make the enthusiasm for the player, make player dream, make the team dream. What is the vision? How can we come there? Why could we do this? I think that is, I never even come from a very small circumstances. Background is nothing. Like, we had no history in Sweden, we had no knowledge, we had no money, we had nothing. This team that was successful internationally slept on an attic in one room on the floor on every training camp we had. 12 mattresses on the floor, 1 or 2 inch thick, that's all, just practicing, sleeping there, and convincing people that this is the way we're gonna do it, this is the way we're gonna challenge. And I had one motto saying, making more out of less. We got to make more out of less. We got to make much more of every dollar than anybody else is making out of any dollar.
Great philosophy.
Or making more out of any minute than anybody is making out of any minute.
So as you prepared for so many years of battle with other teams, what were the top 1 or 2 players on the other side of the net that were probably the strongest players in your opinion that you coached against?
On the other side, that's from time to time.
Yeah.
I mean, we didn't confront U.S. too many times, but obviously Karch and Timmons, there was great players. All the bunch of the great generation, like they call it in Italy, the generational phenomenon. If all of them, if it's a Sorsi or a Cantagalli or Bernardi or Vullo or Toffoli, I coached many of them myself later when I was in Italy.
You saw for yourself how good they
were. And then you had Russians, and you have them all actually, and But I have never been coaching against single players. I've been coaching against teams.
Sure. One particular highlight, is there one particular highlight from you for all the years of coaching? What do you feel was there a crowning achievement?
There's a few moments. One I mentioned already, qualifying for the Olympics in Italy, against Italy. I think, of course, winning against Soviet Union, they hadn't lost a match in European Championship for 22 years, I think, when we beat them. To be us, that little small volleyball nation, one of the smallest on earth, to beat Soviet Union after 22 years, I think that was really one achievement. But one of the recent one, I think, winning the championship in Japan, because also in Japan I came to one of the smallest team that for 55 years had never even been playing a semi-final, and there are only 8 teams. They could not be the first 4, never a semi-final even. And coming to making that team, coming first to the semi-final, and next time coming not only to the semi-final, but the final, and winning the final, and winning the Emperor's Cup. A team that struggled for 56 years and was never having any talent. And still, my team there, I'm still there. We don't have any national team players. So that only shows that it's possible always. And these moments of speciality, this means a lot.
That's great.
And when I started, one thing that was striking me was when US and Doug Beal could make international top team. And I know his situation. He didn't have many players to select from. He had more than I had, and more possibility. But I felt similar. We are the same. I don't have any players. I have to create my own players. Right. I cannot select players. I have to select individuals that want to go with me on this journey and see if we can go to the top of that mountain. That's great. That's the way I was working.
2 more questions. Tell us a little bit about your beach travels company. And the impact you're making on the development of beach players.
Yeah, it's fantastic. It's a totally other thing, but it's still that flying ball that you try to control, and fantastic people. And we are making beach training camps for a week or 2 weeks for everybody, beginners, passionate amateurs, up to the elite or national team players, players from the World Tour. And we try to have highest possible quality on everything. Just the contrary to my national team sleeping on the attic. We have 5-star hotel. Yeah. We are booking the flights. We are putting up 40 courts exactly on the millimeter on the sand, in line with each other and so on. And I have a lot of events going on. And we have 500 people that way at the same time. And I coach a bit myself, some groups and so, but most of all, I'm trying to coach the other coaches, because if you have 500 people, you need good coaches. And our leading star is that it should be the best quality there is on earth for everybody, adjusted to every individual. So that's how we work.
You are a leader of leaders, and it's awesome to have you here. Let me ask you one final question. How do you feel about being inducted this weekend into the International Volleyball Hall of Fame?
Oh, it's amazing. It's an honor. I was so surprised. It's a prize or a recognition that you're not walking around thinking about. And when the news came, I was just on the beach with a few hundred players and other coaches, and I was like, bang, is this true? Am I going to be in this illustrious group of well-recognized people? And it's true. And then I start to look, who has been inducted here? In it, except one, I think, they are all won Olympic gold medals. So what I'm doing here, I don't know.
Well, I think we had a good chance, as I outlined, your success, and you're certainly deserving, and it's been great having a chance to speak with you. We've been speaking with International Volleyball Hall of Fame class of 2017 honoree Anders Kristiansson. This is Volleyball in Perspective, and I'm your host, Joel Deering. Thank you for watching.